It is time now to continue with syntax, or the architecture of sentences. The objectives in this session are to recognize basic constituents of sentences, distinguish between different kinds of sentences, and make syntactical connections to actual texts produced by emerging bilingual students and incorporate such connections into analysis. A language is a system for combining its parts in indefinitely many ways. One piece of evidence that this system can be observed in its word order restrictions. If a sentence is an arrangement of words, and we have 5 words such as man, ball, the, and kicked, how many possible combinations can we have from these 5 words? More importantly, are all of these combinations grammatical sentences? Take a look. Mathematically, the number of possible combinations of 5 words is 5 factorial, equaling 120 instances. But among these 120 possible combinations, only 6 form grammatical English sentences. It is clear then that there are certain rules in English for combining words. These rules constrain which words can be combined together or how they might be ordered, sometimes in groups with respect to each other. This is in the realm of syntax. Let's take a look at a further example of this. This is a passage from Lewis Carroll that looks a lot like English. You can recognize some specific things there from English, and yet we know that it has no meaning. Let's begin with building blocks. The phrase is the first one. A phrase is a unit of syntax made up of one or more words, and it contains an obligatory head element and optional modifiers. Here's an example. The black Labrador was chewing a juicy bone very noisily. The first one is a noun phrase. The second one is a verb phrase. The third one is a noun phrase. If we did the same exercise as we did before with the 5 words arranged in different orders, we will have the same options. If we were to rearrange these phrases, there would be only some possible combinations. This is syntax. So we have different types of phrases: the noun phrase, the verb phrase, the adjective phrase, the adverb phrase, and the prepositional phrase. Out of all these phrases, the prepositional phrase is the exception, because all of them except the prepositional phrase can be constituted by a single lexical item that is called the head. And all phrases can be extended by pre-modification or post-modification. A sentence is constituted by different phrases. In this case, a noun phrase, a verb phrase, and an adjective phrase. These phrases can be by themselves only one element that is called the head can be a phrase. However, we can still add more elements to each of these phrases. The phrase is expanded by means of pre or post modification. All of these phrases, the noun phrase is expanded by pre-modification, British grass, that is qualifying the snakes. May, in this case, is adding information to the verb phrase. And finally, the adjective phrase is being modified by an adverb before the adjective. Which one of these phrases has pre-modification? Yes, the adjective phrase has pre-modification. It is pre-modified by the adverb really. Donuts can stand by itself as a noun phrase. Are can stand by itself as a verb phrase. And fattening could be standing by itself as an adjective phrase, but in this case is pre-modified by really. Let's take a look at the noun phrase in more detail. In this case, we have the head, donuts, and we have both pre-modifications and post-modifications. What these pre-modifications and post-modifications do is simply give a lot more information about the head noun. These donuts are large and sugary, and they are these donuts, not other donuts or those donuts. Now, the post-modification is an embedded verb phrase with a prepositional phrase. The suitcase is not the suitcase or another suitcase, but it's a suitcase, and it is leather suitcase. Finally, here we could see that we can juxtapose different pre-modifiers to a head noun. The noun is changed, but the head continues to be the same. It is changed in terms of semantics because it changes the meaning. This suitcase is large, old, and blue, and makes it different from other suitcases. The Florida experience, where the head noun is experience. West Palm Beach schools, the head noun schools. The head here is music, and the composer's difficult piano music. So as you can see, we could have a lot of pre-modifications to a noun, to a head noun. We could also talk about complex post-modification. The proposal for a new building which the committee put forward last week. Let's take a look. For a new building is a post-modification of the head noun proposal. And then we had a relative clause which the committee put forward last week. Relative clauses are clauses that specify something that we already referenced. In this case, the proposal was referenced prior to the relative clause. So let's do an activity. Underline the noun phrase in the following clause and identify the head noun, pre-modifiers, and post-modifiers. Thousands of sun-deprived tourists visit India because it incredibly has the most diverse varieties of beaches anywhere in the world. Stop the video, write this in your notebook, and try to complete this exercise. Now, let's talk about this one. Analyze the constituent parts of the following noun phrases. An interesting government report about air pollution. A long novel with a complex plot dealing with psychological problems of adolescents. Once you do this, you will be in a very good position to analyze at least one noun phrase in your written sample for your analysis. In this section, we're going to talk about the following. First, we're going to know that absolutely verbs are not just action, that verb phrases are not just one word. We're going to talk about tense, aspect, and voice. Also, finite and non-finite clauses. We'll talk about the prepositional phrase and embedding phrases. Verbs clearly are not just action. Verbs express action or, for example, a state of being. In this case, we can have run, jumped, shout, bought. Of course, those clearly show action. But what about these? They express a state of being, and they are also verbs. Verbs are verb phrases do not consist on only one word. Okay, we have that. So these verb phrases are constituted by more than one word, or in this case, they are called complex verb phrases. Let's take a look at some basic diagrams so that you can understand these even better. Every diagram begins with a baseline. The simple subject and the verb are placed on the baseline. So simple subject and verb, in this case, team and run. And finally, the simple subject and the verb are split into two with a vertical line. So the soccer team ran onto the field. Clearly, we have team as the head noun there. Soccer and team are pre-modifiers of the head noun. And run is a verb phrase with a prepositional phrase that is modifying it after. They run onto the field. Onto is the preposition and the field is a noun phrase again, with field being the head noun. Let's take a look at more simple diagrams for verb phrases. Stop the video now and try to do the diagrams for these. First, you begin with the baseline. Hunger clearly is the head noun there. And this verb phrase has two words, is and beating. The subject and the verb phrase. and then you connect. Start with the base, assembly, and approved, subject and verb. And finally, community was not overseen, subject and verb phrase. Let's talk about tense. Tense is the property allowing the verb to differentiate between present and past. For example, Jane likes music, or Jane liked music. There is no morphologically marked future in English. We mark the future by saying will, going to, etc. But it is not in the morphology, it's in the syntax. What tenses are present in your written sample? You might use this information to write about the tenses. Aspect. Aspect is the property allowing the verb to give information about the state or the action. We have different aspects in English. One is progressive, and the action is in progress. For example, Sarah is helping her sister. A perfect aspect is when the action is complete. For example, Sarah has helped her sister. Perfect progressive is in terms of the duration form. And in this case, it could be said like, Sarah has been helping her sister. Once again, what aspect is present in your own written sample? In terms of voice, we have passive voice and we also have active voice. Most of the times, it is active voice that is used. However, passive voice is also used, as in this case. The singer performed the song is active voice, but the song was performed by the singer, it would be passive voice. What is the difference here? Well, the singer is the noun phrase one, perform is the verb phrase, and the song is the noun phrase two. As you could see in the passive construction, the noun phrase two becomes the subject of the sentence. We add the be, in this case in past, was, and a verb in past participle, performed. And then we add also the by, and finally we include the noun phrase one at the end. This gives the passive voice construction. We could also express the same thing in a different aspect, but still in active voice. The singer was performing the song, and the song was being performed by the singer. Notice that the same transformation happens here. What voice is present in your written sample? Finite and non-finite verb phrases. Finite verbs or verb phrases are marked by tense. John plays the guitar. Non-finite verbs or verb phrases are not marked by tense. It is impossible to know anything about the timing when this happened. To arrive on time was their objective. As you could see, the verb arrive is non-finite verb. Are some finite or non-finite parents present in your own written sample? Prepositional phrases. Let's analyze this sentence. Michael gave Bray a large bouquet of roses. The noun phrase is a large bouquet, and of roses is the prepositional phrase. Preposition of and the noun phrase roses. Okay, so the of roses is embedded in the noun phrase. Ryan cycled 50 miles for charity. Give it a try. Stop the video and try to diagram this sentence as shown in the example. For charity is an adjunct function in the clause, and for is the prepositional phrase. Charity would be the noun. It is called an adjunct function because it can be moved. Notice that in the previous example, you cannot move of roses at the very beginning. Are there any prepositional phrases in your written sample? Embedding. It is the occurrence of a linguistic unit within another. So, for example, post-modifying a noun phrase with a prepositional phrase or clause. Jane told a story about her friend with measles. The prepositional phrase 1 and prepositional phrase 2 are embedded within the noun phrase. Are there any embedded phrases in your written sample? So coming back to this. An interesting government report about air pollution. Did you figure out? Report is the noun, is the head noun. An interesting government, that is a pre-modifier. About air pollution is a prepositional phrase with a preposition about and the noun phrase air pollution after that. In the second sentence, a long novel with a complex plot dealing with psychological problems of adolescents. We have the head noun novel, pre-modified by a long, and post-modified by a first prepositional phrase with a complex plot, specifying the kind of novel, the kind of theme the novel has. Psychological problems of adolescents. An important thing to recognize is that the main problem that many emerging bilingual students have when applying the basic principles and patterns of sentence constituents is not that they commit mistakes. The main challenge is that especially those in the lowest proficiency ranges overuse some basic patterns of sentence constituents, resulting in texts that might be grammatically correct and understandable, but that are very simple in terms of construction. In your projects, you should be looking for this